Julian Assange, stay in there, and I believe in what you're saying and everything, and I hope things turn out well for you. Thank you.
Welcome to the 247th Julian Assange Sydney Town Hall gathering. Transnational repression comes to us courtesy of the parasite class. The small percentage of, quote, humanity, unquote, that wishes to exert as much control over human society as it can through a combination of deception and coercion. We need to clearly recognize that absolute control of humanity is the aim of the psychopathic parasite class. We need to realize that what the puppets and media of the parasite class attempt to do is to enable absolute control for the parasite class. To resist, we must be able to think for ourselves and avoid the transit path to absolute control. We must be aware that the puppets of the parasite class include those who operate deceptively as a controlled opposition. The controlled opposition never does anything to bring about the unity of ordinary men and women, because the aim is to control rather than the pursuit of peace, justice, and freedom. A controlled opposition distracts us from achieving goals in the public interest by choosing arguments that create disunity, thereby allowing governments to work against our best interests. We must not allow ourselves to be led by the Pied Pipers of controlled opposition. We need to realize that we each possess our own authority and are each capable of resisting control. People who don't believe that they have any authority to resist control will be most prone to the harms of propaganda and coercion. We all need to realize our own authority. Otherwise, democracy is meaningless. We all have the potential of demonstrating our humanity by standing up for truth and justice. Even the puppets of oppression have the opportunity of waking up and becoming conscious of the truth. If we are ever told human rights should not be respected for some reason or other, the attempt being made is to have us deny our connection with humanity. If nothing else, maintaining our connection with humanity helps to prevent atrocities. We need to keep in mind that we are ultimately all on the same side when it comes to peace, justice, and freedom. Even if we are not free, it is the right of everyone to speak freely. Those who control speech through legal or other means have no right to do so. We must resist the mechanisms that are employed to limit our freedom of speech. On the 8th of August, the United Nations unanimously passed the controversial International Treaty on Cybersecurity. The treaty is supposedly a way for authorities to fight cybercrime. But this is a deception and is likely to fool people into accepting a further loss of freedom of speech. The parasite class commonly uses deception to create circumstances where people's fears cause them to submit to coercive control. The International Treaty of Cybersecurity will allow authorities to acquire evidence across international borders and require internet service providers to hand over data from their users. Human rights advocates have warned that the ambiguous nature of the International Cybersecurity Treaty will mean it will be used to enforce transnational repression of individuals and groups involved in journalism, research, and the exercise of human rights. Free speech is the right of all human beings. Denying anyone free speech equates to enslavement. Those who advocate against free speech of anyone for any reason assume they have superior rights. The human right of free speech should always be available to everyone, including on the internet. Standing up for human rights means standing up for the human rights of everyone. Standing up for human rights resists totalitarian control. We must resist the fear-mongering that is used to scare people into forsaking their human rights. Freedom of speech does not mean having the freedom to control other people's speech. If the only speech we are permitted is controlled, it will be controlled by those who hate our freedom. Free speech is our best tool for learning the truth. Those who wish to suppress our freedom of speech know what they are doing. We need to keep working for free speech and our right to know the truth. Free, free, free the truth. Free, free, free the truth. Free, free, free the truth. Thank you. We're initially here for Julian Assange, and we remain here for Julian Assange, who had to plead guilty to a crime for being a journalist that told the truth, that revealed war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places around the world. And he showed us that those wars were waged for a very small handful of people to make a lot of money. We have another brave Australian in David McBride, former military lawyer, who told us also about the truth of the war crimes committed in Afghanistan, not only by soldiers, but by our politicians and by our media, who deceived us, made us think that we were doing a good thing in Iraq and Afghanistan. But the truth was, the Afghans and the Iraqi people hated our presence in their country. And as a result, we murdered their civilians in the hundreds of thousands of civilians were murdered. 90% of the death in Iraq and Afghanistan were civilians. Women, children, babies. We see this continuing now in Israel and in the Ukraine. This criminal behaviour continues. But back to David McBride, I want to bring your attention to another very famous and brave Australian, David McBride, who, by the way, is the son of Dr. William McBride, who exposed a drug called thalidomide. Thalidomide caused birth defects in the babies that were born to women in the 1950s and 1960s. David McBride, who exposed criminal behaviour in Afghanistan, is now serving a over 5-year sentence for telling us the truth. So it would appear now that truth tellers are going to face at least 5 years for telling the truth. And when people get jailed for telling the truth, we know those that are jailing them are criminals. Pure and simple. We are being ruled by criminals. We must stand beside David McBride. Please come and get a brochure and please sign a petition to have David McBride released immediately from custody and have him vindicated. Thank you.
Canberra recently, there were some of the Canberra Assange people outside one of the big locations in Canberra with David McBride signs, Free David McBride and so on. I can't remember if it also says, you know, Free Dan Duggan and or Free Richard Boyle, but the fact is all three of those guys we need to be talking about now, and we need help with getting our leaflets out, which actually, if you see this, it says Free David McBride and the press and whistleblowers. That's our leaflet now, right? We do have Julian Assange messages here, as we've always had, because that's been part of our brand. But moving on, we see the Free David McBride petition. We see the Free Richard Boyle petition. We see the Free Dan Duggan petition. So Dan Duggan is not involved with publishing like David McBride and Richard Boyle were as whistleblowers, but Dan Duggan is also being attacked by the overreach of the US Espionage Act. So all three of these guys need our help, and we would love people to come here and help us hand out leaflets to talk about this stuff. And we need more help in getting more people involved, because I think the problem has been, I remember some little time ago, I listened to a thing on ABC News Radio late at night. It was the BBC radio news service or whatever it is, and something was going on about Julian Assange, and it said in this posh, southwest London BBC accent, which I won't try and do, but it said the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is today blah 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 blah, and the way they said the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, it made him sound like a rock star, especially with that BBC Southwest London voice saying it, right? So we need to make these other three guys, David McBride, Richard Boyle and Dan Duggan, we need to make them rock stars. So we need help in doing that, and we should have a time limit each of these three guys are going to be rock stars, like all the supporters all around the world made Julian, and we need to say give ourselves a 6 or 12-month time limit, by which time we'll have made all these three guys rock stars, just like Julian Assange was considered, well, a rock star, if you will, by many. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
I love your stuff, man. You've no idea how we've got Akis Haralabopoulos, an economist based in Sydney. All I can say, as far as Julian Assange is concerned, best thing to have ever happened to the world. It's not often you see someone telling the truth, telling the world what the truth is and how governments really operate. When you actually get the real cablegrams, the policy analysis, the real emails, and you actually find out what governments are really thinking. And everything else you see in the mainstream media is just one huge deception.
Thank you.
It's like this, the problem is 95% of people are so indoctrinated. They want to believe the mainstream media because it makes life easy for them. The thing with WikiLeaks is, hey, we tell people the truth and people are scared of the truth.
It's scary, the truth. We're being, look at the way they've treated Julian. He showed us.
Mate, what? This is the British legal system, mate. The British legal system.
Corrupt.
He was in jail in high security without a charge.
Yeah.
What was he in jail for?
14 years they held him.
And the Ecuadorians, of course, sold him down the river because, hey,
10 billion.
Because they had money.
10 billion.
The Yanks had money. And the US was prepared to spend $10 billion to get their hands on him. That's how much the US government hates the truth.
Yeah. Scared stiff.
Exactly.
Scared stiff.
Exactly. And what did he do? Publish stuff, like a journo. And they wanted to convict him, and he was operating under as a journalist, which means he should have had the protection of the US First Amendment, freedom of expression.
He never had it.
No,
nobody has them.
The US wanted to kill him. It was that simple. And use him as an example against all the other journos to make sure you guys toe the line.
And everybody has. Nobody said boo since he was locked up.
Sure. So why didn't they go after the New York Times or the Washington Post, which are pro-democrat newspapers?
And they revealed the unredacted files. It was Julian that redacted people's names.
And no US intelligence operative suffered because of Wikileaks. No one mentions that. Anyway, guys.
We are all Assange.